Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of November 5th, 2018. On this show today, park news from the Magic Kingdom, EPCOT, and Hollywood Studios. Plus, Jim has stories about the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy and Jungle Cruise movies and rides. But first, on this week in Disney history, the Magic Kingdom Skyway serves its last guest in 1999, and Big Thunder Mountain has its official opening in the Magic Kingdom in 1980. If I bring in the star of our show, Mr. Jim Hill, we're on our way to the Jeopardy category, things that scared the hell out of Len's grandmother, Doris. Welcome to the show, Jim. How's it going?
Really? Doris didn't care
She would have loved you, Jim. She would have loved you.
Okay. Well, back in the day, Big Thunder was that combination of theming and thrills that was a groundbreaker, but I don't recall hearing that it scared all that many people. Epcot's Festival in the Arts, on the other hand, terrifies me, but that's another story.
And speaking of that, Jim, today Disney announced details of next January's Festival of the Arts with the schedule released for the entire event. A couple of notable things. It looks like the Broadway-style concerts are expanding to 7 days per week. So I think it was only 5 days a week now. But this is Disney talent, Disney recording artists singing Disney songs. And of course, there's a dining package for guaranteed seating for these things as well. I didn't realize that this part of the event would be that popular. Jim, what's going on there?
It's classic Disney synergy. You bring performers in who've either appeared in Disney shows. In fact, the gentleman who starred as Tarzan in the Broadway version of this thing, it seems to come back every year. But at the same time, you can get all of these folks, they're up on stage, they're talking about their wonderful experiences in Disney shows. And, by the way, there's Frozen in New York, and there's, Aladdin is touring the country right now.
Right. If you liked Beauty and the Beast on stage, you would love Disney's Frozen. Oh, okay.
In fact, looking at the schedule, there he is, Josh Strickland. Josh these days pretty much shows up if Disney opens an envelope. On the other hand, very cool. They got Gavin Lee, who was just on Broadway. He played Squidward in SpongeBob the Musical, but they created a costume for Gavin to wear where he appeared to have 6 legs.
No, really?
Yeah, it was great fun. But they've got great representation from all of the shows that have been on Broadway so far, whether it's Adam Jacobs out of Aladdin or Steve Blanchard. Oh my God, Steve was in Beauty and the Beast as the Beast, I want to say, for 15 years. A good portion of the run, he was the Beast.
Wow. So he's not going to have to learn any of the songs or anything, is what you're saying.
Well, one would hope. It's like a Beauty and the... Wait, it'll come to me. Hang on.
Wait, Beauty and the... Yeah. In addition to the concert series, looks like there are going to be food options again. Shocker. 13 food booths, plus more offerings all around Epcot. I looked at the menus from years past, which included things like the smoked salmon, the almond cake with raspberry and chocolate, and the short ribs and things like that. The only thing that I saw that was new here was the beef Wellington with mushroom bordelaise, fennel cream, and roasted baby vegetables over at the artist table. So, Jim, it looks like they're keeping the menu pretty much the same as last time. That said, if you go back and look at our touringplans.com reader surveys, all of these booths get well above 90% approval. I can understand them not wanting to change anything there. Any comments on the food?
Are they even bothering to pull the booths backstage anymore? Between the food component and Flower and Garden, and of course the food component and food and wine and holidays around the world. It's just, why even bother to get... forget it. Just leave it where it is.
Yeah, that was... you laugh. When Laurel and I were walking around Food and Wine last month, we came up to the booth that is surrounded by lava briquettes, which is, I believe, Hawaii. I can't remember at the time. And the funny part of it is as we were walking by it, we were trying to figure out what cuisine or country that represented. And every name that we mentioned was from one festival or another from Epcot. Like, okay, if it's Food and Wine, this is Hawaii. But if it's the Festival of the Arts, then it might be, something Moana related. And if it's, or something else, right? You can't tell from the booth what kind of food it's going to be from festival to festival.
If you've been watching the booths over the years, Disney has gotten that much more elaborate. They have learned that a booth that has an open kitchen that people can look in and see the food being prepared does that much better than basically what looks like a garden shed.
Yeah. I'll give them credit. Yeah. The number one, the food booths are much more themed, right? The Greek ones have the blue and white, architecture. The one that is encased in lava looks good. And you're right. The cooking is now done in front of you, not by the chef with their back to you in the back of the booth. So it's stove forward is the phrase I want to use, right?
Yep.
So it's more like a teppanyaki thing. Yeah, that's good. In terms of activities, I think I looked at the list of activities that WW Magic has presented. Everything looked relatively the same as last time. So wall murals and stepping inside of artworks to take pictures, the Paint with a Disney Artist program, a bunch of workshops, seminars, bunch of artists coming in to talk about their work. Did you see anything new in the list of things that were being offered in terms of entertainment?
I think the one thing that stands out is jumping this from sort of an extendo weekend, 3 days, 4 days now to now 7 days a week.
Yeah.
That seems to be the only big change, Len. Just a few more days to get my hand in your wallet.
I think it's a low cost festival, able to bring some people out to see it, mostly locals. Also over at Epcot, it looks like the Wreck-It Ralph characters are coming to ImageWorks.
Yeah, this really has more to do with the fact that they have open real estate. This is not a Ralph and Penelope are not getting ready to push the Dreamfinder and Figment out.
Right. This is really, if you think about it, the ImageWorks part of the Imagination Pavilion, the thing that you walk through when you're done with the Imagination ride, that hasn't been significantly updated in, 10 years?
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There have been discussions. In fact, they took a hard look at whether or not they could get something new, or at least this Future World Pavilion Plus for the 50th anniversary. And in the end, the decision was that's not going to move the needle the way the Ratatouille ride is or the Guardians of the Galaxy ride is. So
no, there's not a lot they can do in a post-ride scenario there where the dollars would be worth, or the ROI they're going to get. I walked through this recently, and it was cutting edge maybe 15 years ago. Remember, most of that space is taken up by computers that will allow you to take a picture of yourself and then transform your facial features and then send an email of it to someone.
Yeah.
But we can all do that on our phone now with Instagram, and it's faster and it's easier to use.
Yeah.
So that's not really a thing anymore. But it's an interesting question, right? So let's say it was at the time, that particular thing was 5 or 10 years into the future. What is the thing that Disney puts in there that to show us what we'll be using or what we'll be doing, in terms of entertainment or imagination 10 years from now? I think that's a harder question to answer.
No, absolutely. For example, the in-queue gaming, they're going to be encouraging people to use their phones to play against one another, and
exactly
the person who wins gets to step out of line and go straight into the attraction. That's really the challenge right now with imagination is how can we do something that isn't, by the time we get it built, isn't something they can already do better on their phone. Right.
What can we do now that we can't put in the game?
Yeah.
I think for that, it's not necessarily visual things that they need to do. Anything that you can do visually, regarding taking pictures of yourself and adding crazy features to it, you can do that on your phone. I think one area that they might want to explore is audio and voice. So there are still things with voice that you can do in imagination that you can't do with your phone as easily. So getting it to respond to commands, even an Alexa-like service in imagination would be interesting because it's difficult to do that on your phones at the park because of the noise background and stuff like that. So that's still interesting to a lot of people. That might be an idea there. But yeah, you're right. Not only has technology progressed faster, but the things that you can do on your phone in lines is more than what Disney can invent
right now. Anyway,
yeah,
we remain ever hopeful.
Yeah. There are ideas. They just take time and money.
Yeah, and I don't want imagination to become sort of the equivalent of Future World and Tomorrowland, where it's Disney is ever chasing the bleeding edge of what people can do with their phones or what actually happened in the future.
There's still a lot of stuff that they can do. Again, it's just going to take some persistence, but definitely there. Speaking of things that they can do, over at the studios, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is coming late summer next year, and we heard this weekend that it's also coming to Disneyland. So WDWNT was the first to break it. We'd actually heard about this last week, and we're told not to say anything about it.
Yeah.
But what's driving that, Jim?
The playtesting for this attraction, the response has been so strong. The sense is it's going to be a hit right out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when Galaxy's Edge opens at Disneyland Park, they're going to need things that suck up additional people because of, for the huge crowds that are going to be surging into that park. So there are ideas on the table, but this is among the easiest to get up and going. The building that this will go into is already backstage. It's used as an entertainment office. They will just basically gut the building and load the attraction in.
Does that mean that the Team Disney offices on the Disneyland property are moving somewhere else? If it's already an occupied office building, doesn't that indicate that people are moving?
This is entertainment space. These are rehearsal halls. Okay. This is parade storage, costume storage. It's relatively easy to create new space for this. And once construction is completed of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, it's entirely possible to get another one of these large generic buildings up out of the ground. That's the thing people need to understand about Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, is that inside of the old great movie ride, and that was a giant barn of a structure.
Yeah.
But this is a mostly projection-driven attraction. It's also keying off of lots of set pieces that will transform in front of you. But again, it's what makes this amazing is watching a building shape change into a tree shape and, right in front of you, that sort of thing. So it's going to be an easier ride to pull off than, say, a Pirates of the Caribbean or a Haunted Mansion. Even from the announcement, which I guess is being made officially at the D23 Expo that's being held at the Contemporary, I think that's when the word is supposed to officially come down. This is still going to take 2 and 3 years to get up out of the ground out west.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were saying Galaxy's Edge is opening in July, my sense is that wasn't a long enough time frame for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway to come to Disneyland. So this will be like 2 years later.
Yeah, we're talking, what is it, 2021?
2021 is going to be a big year for the parks.
That it is.
All right, Jim, we're recording this on November 1st, and we heard yesterday on Halloween that Disney would start promoting its Christmas offerings and getting the parks and hotels decorated starting today. I know it takes a lot of time to get that done, Jim, but it seems like that's a few days, maybe a week earlier than in seasons past. Is anything driving that?
Yes, there are a lot of people who aren't necessarily speeding to Walt Disney World this year, largely because they're looking forward to going Lightspeed in 2021 in Black Square Outpost. Getting the holiday offerings into the parks this year faster is a crucial part of that. In fact, we'll be talking later in the show about some of the holiday offerings. But for example, do you remember the old Believe in Holiday Magic show that they did at Disneyland Park? That was the one they introduced, Snowing on Main Street, and people in California lost their minds when they first saw that. But that actually went into the parks in the fall of 2000 because so many people in California were holding back to going to Disneyland because Disney's California Adventure was going to open in January 2001.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They deliberately put that into the parks to, you have to come to the parks. This is the only time of year it snows on Main Street. So bringing the holidays to Disney World that much earlier is like, you have to come. This is the only time you get to see the lights.
Yeah, definitely come in January when DC opens, but also come in December.
There we go.
Over at the Magic Kingdom, there's a new upcharge event for Tony's Town Square during Christmas parties. It's called Tony's Most Merriest Town Square Party. They're offering hors d'oeuvres, hot beverages, cold beverages. Basically, you can walk in and eat whatever you want as many times as you want while you're in the park. The thing that strikes me about this is that it's an upcharge event inside an upcharge event. I realized that the movie Inception was a Warner Brothers film, but that's where this was Disney trying to do some sort of cross promotion thing. Like, are they gonna offer you caviar for even more money inside this?
Yeah, when does it say? Okay, but this also includes a reserved viewing area for Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas Time Parade.
There aren't that many people at the parties. It's not that hard to get.
I get that. And Len, did I mention the cannolis? Okay, just sort of like, all right, it's a $99 upcharge, but bring a bag and take home your weight in cannolis.
Oh yeah, I mean, so let's go over the offerings here. So Tony's Town Square is an Italian restaurant, but you get all you can eat as many times as you like, hors d'oeuvres including meat and cheese, meatballs, pizzas, stuffed artichokes, pumpkin tartlets. I think that's definitely not Italian, but whatever. Yule logs, cannoli, Christmas cookies, cupcakes, beer, wine, non-alcoholic beverages. It all looks fantastic. You're basically paying for like 2 or 3 dinners.
So what we're suggesting here is the Vegas plan, that if you lose in the casino, but you try to kill them at the buffet, right? So
exactly. So it starts at 9:30 and goes until 12:30 a.m., which is 3 hours of eating. This would be a better deal if it started like at 6. Because you really could get 2 meals in. You could basically get a dinner and then second dinner.
Yeah,
just throwing it out there, Disney. I know you're listening. The food menu doesn't sound bad. I might do this.
I get it, but when you enter, especially these days, when they're clearing the park, I mean, face it, you can go in at what, 4 o'clock, all right, and they send you up that walkway behind Main Street USA, and you're handed your cookie. You're already getting food with this. Aren't there still cookies and hot chocolate?
I mean, you're getting snacks. I mean, these are meals, right? Meatball, cannoli, pizzas. That's food, right? That's a dinner.
I get that.
Tony's has actually been improving in our reader ratings for the last couple of months. They got a new chef apparently.
Okay.
I may have to try this out, Jim, and report back in the interest of science.
Well, there we
research.
go. All right. Well, just bring Tupperware and bring me a hand tossed pizza, please.
I'll send you one in the mail. It'll be my Christmas present to you.
There we go.
Also over at Adventureland, again today, November 1st, it's a Wednesday, Jungle Cruise has returned to its Jingle Cruise roots for the holidays. This was a relatively quiet thing. I didn't see much of this mentioned in any of the Disney announcements.
Nothing.
But they did bring Jingle Cruise back.
They did. Jingle Cruise debuted in 2013. And when this was initially rolled out in 2013, it was at Disneyland Park and Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. In 2017, the word came down that while it would come back to the Magic Kingdom, it wouldn't be brought back at Disneyland. What was said at that time was that, well, this is because we're going to be doing massive work on the Jungle Cruise to capitalize on the Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt movie, which just started shooting this past summer, in fact, wrapped in September.
All right, and we're gonna talk about this shortly, right?
That we are.
But Jingle Cruise definitely in Walt Disney World, but maybe not in Disneyland this year?
They were so ridiculously quiet about this coming back to the Magic Kingdom this year. I mean, seriously.
I actually had to ask someone to verify it.
I mean, it was one of these things where, in years previous, if you went, for example, to the Magic Kingdom page, the Disney Parks and Resorts portal, there was actually a sub-menu that would say, oh, by the way, we're going to be doing, during certain times of the year, Jungle Cruise becomes Jingle Cruise. And that's not even there now. I have the uneasy feeling that this doesn't necessarily move the dial in the way that, say, Holiday Wishes used to, or that sort of thing.
Right. But Jim, I understand you have news about how the Jungle Cruise movie and how the attraction are going to transform over the next couple of years, right?
That I do.
Let's take a quick commercial break. I will go venerate my poster of The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and we'll come back and we'll talk about that. All right, folks, we'll be right back. And we're back. All right, Jim, you've got some interesting news for us, not only on how the Jungle Cruise movie and attraction are changing, but also you've got some interesting information on how Galaxy's Edge is going to work. And then you've got some other information about other Disney movies, right? Guardians of the Galaxy and the ride.
Yeah.
Let's start with Galaxy's Edge.
Okay. This information comes from the folks who are planning the opening of the California version, the Black Spire Outpost for Disneyland Park. You have to remember the setup for that particular version of Galaxy's Edge is different than the one at Disney's Hollywood Studios. There are actually 3, as they call them, portals into the land. There is the one that's really the deepest, farthest back in the park. That's from Critter Country. You actually walk by the Hungry Bear restaurant.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the one that's going to be located on Big Thunder Trail. And then sort of at the very top of the land, as you come past Pinocchio House, pretty much entering where Big Thunder Ranch used to be. The current plan is that if you're coming to the park to go into Galaxy's Edge during the first summer of operation, which again is going to be 2019, you're going to have to queue up along Big Thunder Trail, because the only way in is going to be through the Big Thunder portal. This will basically put you in the center of the bazaar. If you want to go to the Battle to the First Order attraction, you're going to hang a left. If you want to get to the Millennium Falcon or the bazaar area, you're going to hang a right. As you're in line, you'll be handed a piece of paper that basically tells you that if you're looking to exit the land, you're either going to have to go down to Critter Country or up to Fantasyland, because they are not going to allow guests to enter and exit through the Big Thunder portal. This is an entry-only portal, and the exits will be either to the south Critter Country or to the north to Fantasyland.
All right, so that confirms at least one thing that we had said, that there was going to be one way in and one way out, or at least one way into to Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland. Okay, we always thought it was going to be the Frontierland. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
As I've been told, that once Galaxy's Edge in Anaheim completes its first summer of operation, Disneyland will revisit the idea of allowing guests to enter and exit as they please through all three portals. I mean, people also need to be aware that this could change depending on how large the crowds are, how successful they are at getting people to queue up along Big Thunder Trail. The belief is that this is going to be the area that can hold the most bodies. I guess they looked at having people enter through Critter Country, and it's like you're walking people past three of our biggest attractions.
Well, not only that, but the walkway is much more narrow than the walkway. Yeah, so it's okay for an exit. It's not great for an entrance.
There you go. And likewise, having people go up through Fantasyland, it's just getting them past the Dumbo ride.
Well, yeah, but Fantasyland's the heart of Disneyland. Again, it's a highly trafficked area. You don't want to send people through that.
So this seems to be the default position for now. But again, I understand that this could change. On the other hand, for Disney Hollywood Studios, what they seem to have settled on it, nobody's going to be watching more closely.
No one is more interested in what's happening in Disneyland
than
Disney World. I mean, we're interested. They're invested.
There we go. Largely, this is on the back of traffic patterns at this park have changed significantly since the opening of Toy Story Land. In fact, touring plans data bearing that out, Len? Or
it is. Toy Story Land is popular very, very early in the morning. It does fall off in the afternoon.
Okay.
But I think the big thing that we're hearing from guests is the fact that you can't walk all the way through it. Right? You have to go in and turn around.
Yeah.
Number one, it causes confusion. Number two, people hate turning around and walking back. Backtracking is never good in a theme park unless you give people a reason for it. And in this case, the reason is we haven't built out the rest of the park. It's not a great reason. I think if Disney has two choices, well, Disney has really three choices, right, when it comes to Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land. They could allow people to enter Galaxy's Edge from both Toy Story Land and Grand Avenue. They could allow people in through Toy Story Land and out through Grand Avenue, or they could allow people in through Grand Avenue and out through Toy Story Land. I think the first two ideas are terrible from a flow perspective. So I think the only rational idea is to let people go in through Grand Avenue and then out through Toy Story Land.
You'll be pleased to hear that that's what they've kind of settled on at this point.
Okay.
In much the same way as getting people to queue up along Big Thunder Trail, the notion is that they'll do a switchback in that large open street area. And one of the ideas that's being floated now is that if you show up and there's a 2 and 3 hour line just to getting entrance to Galaxy's Edge, there's going to be
2 or 3 hours. Jim, you're an optimist. Go ahead.
Well, no, there's going to be
You're adorable. Your optimism, 2 or 3 hours.
There's going to be a cast member standing there who's like, "Oh, well, I have a fast pass for Star Tours, please."
Oh, really? Okay, so I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
that is news. Okay, so basically, they're going to hand you front of the line tickets to somewhere else. All right. So that means, though, Jim, if they're going to, I'm guessing here they're going to be fast passing a lot of shows because shows have more capacity.
They do.
All right. So Indiana Jones 8 times a day. Here, kid, you're on stage at Beauty and the Beast in 15 minutes. Here's your costume. Congratulations.
They're hoping that the Cars driving school attraction that's going into the Black Box Theater down on Sunset Boulevard, they're hoping that's that much more successful than, the Villain event and, the other things they've tried out in that space because...
Right. But that's an elaborate meet and greet, right? I've been in that space. They can't put an attraction in there.
No. But on the other hand, the notion is we get you front of the line to go into this meet and greet. That drives guests over to that side of the park.
Right. Yeah, at least some of them, right? It doesn't have to be successful 100% of the time, but if it's even 10%, It's 10% less people in line.
That seems to currently be the plan, though. What's really going to matter is, A, the number of people that show up, B, do they actually fit in the Big Thunder Trail area or Grand Avenue? And there are other contingencies being mapped out. But anticipate, if at least if you're going to Disney Hollywood Studios, that you're going to have to be cutting through a crowd if you're trying to get to anything on that side of the park, be it Star Tours or the Backlot Express or anything.
Yeah. In both Walt Disney World and in Disneyland, it makes sense to put the crowds where you're talking about because there's not a lot of other things there right now. So in World, the only thing that you're going to block off with a huge crowd is Muppets.
Yeah.
And that's fine, right? If the crowd is big enough to block off Muppets, that's the sacrifice you make. And I'm sure that they could win the crowd that way, wind the crowd appropriately. In Disneyland, it's really, you might get some spillover into the sort of the back end of the Big Thunder Mountain range. But if your alternatives are, let's block off Splash Mountain, Haunted Mansion, and Pirates of the Caribbean, yeah, you're not gonna do that. Or if your alternative in Disneyland is let's block off Fantasyland, which again you're not gonna do that. So these seem like the right choices.
No, I agree.
All right, Jim, going back to Jungle Cruise, you've got some news about the movie and then possible changes to the ride.
Yeah, they started shooting this movie earlier this summer. I want to say they started shooting in May of 2018, and what happened while they were shooting, in fact, they shot all the way to September 14th, is that in the middle of all that, word came down in the middle of July that James Gunn was being let go as the director of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which already had locked in a release date. They were toggling back and forth. They couldn't quite decide whether or not they were going to go with what Guardians Volume 2 had in 2017, that was the first week of May, or what the original Guardians had back in 2014. They opened in late July, early August. And so once James basically was fired, the project was put on hold, and now Disney was facing a hole in its release schedule. And they'd already slotted Jungle Cruise for October 19th of next year, October 2019. And it's basically what they've had to do now is to sort of fill that gap in Disney's release schedule, is they've pushed the Jungle Cruise out. Now it's opening July 24th, 2020. Anybody who's looking at Disney pushing back that release date, thinking, oh, that movie's in trouble and they got to do work and that sort of thing, is like, no. This is literally trying to fill the gap where Guardians was located. Meanwhile, have you heard about these billboards that have been purchased outside of Disneyland and along I-4, where it's just basically in the Marvel Guardians type style? It's sort of urging Disney to rehire James Gunn.
No, is this so it's in Disneyland in California and in Orlando?
Yeah, they bought billboards in both markets, and
no, who bought them?
Well, I'm trying to find out because it's somebody who's got fairly deep pockets, because these things go for $4,000 a pop. Literally, in both cases, the ship has sailed. James has already lined up his next job. He's writing and hopefully will be directing Suicide Squad 2 for Warner Brothers.
That's an interesting switch, isn't it?
Well, but actually, when you think about it, it's really not all that hard to understand. I mean, if you look at the motley crew that made up Guardians of the Galaxy, to switch to Harlequin and Crocodile and Deadshot, scuzzy band of customers who come together and form a working unit that sort of kind of do good. I get it, but we're still in kind of a tough spot. At least I was talking with a friend at Imagineering, and they're like, we are so much in the process now of redoing what we were going to do with the Guardians attraction for Epcot.
Why?
Take, for example, the character of Groot. Okay, the character of Groot, where we left him with the Avengers 3 and soon to be seen in Avengers 4, he's still a teenager. It wasn't until Guardians Volume 3 that he was going to be back in adult form. And so all of the boards that they put together for the attraction featured Groot in adult form. And in fact, they were also going to bring the Groot meet and greet character that's out in front of the attraction at Disney's California Adventure, that we have an adult Groot in our attraction, so we can have the adult meet and greet. It's another one of these sort of, performers on stilts costumes. But it's sort of like, do we stick to where we leave him in the story, or do we just age him up for the ride film? But, they're in a bad spot because they have to now hire somebody to shoot on their own the ride footage that's going into this attraction. There is no guarantee right now that David Bautista, there's no guarantee that Zoe Saldana or Chris Pratt or that sort of thing are actually going to come back and play their characters. They may opt out of this just as a show of solidarity for James Gunn.
And that's not what Disney wants.
No, especially for their giant new world's longest indoor roller coaster attraction. So that's been challenging. That project has been sort of knocked on its ear, but the Imagineers are doing what they can to sort of right the ship. On the other hand, on the Jungle Cruise side of things, in a weird sort of way, this is the Jungle Cruise returning to its original roots. I mean, if you remember the original stories of the Jungle Cruise attraction coming into Disneyland in 1955, its jumping off point was actually that Humphrey Bogart, Katharine Hepburn movie, The African Queen.
African Queen, right.
And that's very much what the relationship that Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson's character have in this movie. That they're going upriver to find this mysterious tree that supposedly has life-giving properties. And this is also supposed to be the launch of a brand new franchise for the company. In fact, last year when they announced that Dwayne was getting on board and that Emily is the follow-up to working on Mary Poppins Returns, that this was, by folks at the studio, they were hoping that this would be the film series that would replace Pirates of the Caribbean, because obviously Mr. Depp has become kind of problematic to put Johnny Depp in a movie these days. Just ask the folks who right now are trying to promote Fantastic Beasts 2. But now that Guardians has been placed on hold, what's fascinating is just last week, news broke that Disney has hired the writers of Deadpool to come in and redo Pirates of the Caribbean. The belief is that we're down a franchise because suddenly Guardians, we can't count on Guardians 3 or 4 or 5. And trust me, there was a plan.
Oh, I'm sure.
Now it's all about bringing these guys in. And it's like, all right, so if we were doing Pirates of the Caribbean and we were moving it beyond Captain Jack Sparrow, or we were limiting, Depp's involvement in this, how would we do this? That's now come to the fore. But the other part of the story I know you'll love, Len, is that as they're prepping to change out these show scenes for the Jungle Cruise at both Disneyland and Disney World, and by proxy, we're also looking at Tokyo and even Hong Kong, which their version of the Jungle Cruise actually goes around that park's equivalent of the Rivers of America. So what they're doing is, when was the last time we thought about doing this? And it's like, 97 for George of the Jungle Cruise.
George of the Jungle
I'm
Cruise.
serious, Len. You can actually Google Bob Rogers. Bob's an old Disney guy and, went out and set up his own company. But back in 97, on the heels of the success of the Brendan Fraser movie, there was a plan to take the entire Jungle Cruise as we know it and parody all of these scenes. I mean, for the notion of when you came to the Sacred Elephant bathing pool, it's okay to take their pictures. They have their trunks on. Well, when you actually went into the scene, they would have had their trunks on. Giant Hawaiian print shirts and scrubbies and shower caps and all that. And so what they've done for this now somewhat serious Pirates of the Caribbean meets the African Queen version of the Jungle Cruise is they're taking all of the work that was done for the 97 redo that didn't go forward because in 1999, Disney made Tarzan. And the thinking was, well, if we put a parody Tarzan into the park, won't that undermine if we do a real meet and greet for Tarzan?
Right.
So that idea never got built. But now on the back of all the work that Bob Rogers people did about identifying places where you could change out show scenes, where you could put in new stuff, they're using that as the template for the new Jungle Cruise, which now, because our release date has been pushed off to 2020, this wasn't the plan for Disney World's 50th anniversary, but it looks like we will see new show scenes keying off of the Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt movie showing up in the park for the 50th anniversary of Disney World. And same summer at Disneyland, which we're talking 2021.
That's actually good to hear. Number one, it'll be a freshening up of the ride. Number two, that particular corner of Adventureland, if it pulls in more people to see that, it would help the rest of the park out, especially with 50th anniversary crowd. So this totally makes sense, not only from a, let's promote the franchise using as many arms of the Disney company as we can, but also from a logistics perspective to make the park experience better for everyone else. That's good. I can see that.
I agree. The one caveat here is, of course, it all depends on how Jungle Cruise does summer of 2020. Though, from Disney's point of view, the fact that Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle did so well for Sony this past Christmas.
Yeah, $400 million, right?
There you go. And that's just the stateside account. If you factor international, was close to $750 million. And Sony is right now prepping Jumanji. Well, I guess it would be Jumanji 3. Because supposedly Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle is a loose sequel to the original.
Right.
But anyway, the folks at Sony are particularly breathing a sigh of relief over the fact that Disney pushed off their Jungle Cruise movie to the summer of 2020, because the original plan, Len, was Jungle Cruise would have come out October 19th of 2019. And then I want to say that Jumanji 3 would have come out December 19th of 2019. And given what happened last year, where I guess Rampage and Skyscraper, two Dwayne came out very close to one another and ate each other's box office. So putting a bunch of months between two movies that feature Dwayne out in the jungle, probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's fine. But to be fair, neither of those previous movies looked particularly compelling. What was the one with the ape?
That's Rampage.
I was trying to figure out what kind of a movie that was when I saw the trailer for it. Like, is it a Dwayne Johnson gorilla buddy movie, right? Like, is this Lethal Weapon but with Dwayne Johnson and a gorilla? Mm-hmm. Is it an adventure movie? Is it a thriller? What I couldn't figure out what genre the movie was going for there. And the script looked tired. I mean, it didn't look interesting. The Skyscraper one, it looked formulaic as well. I mean, there's a couple of interesting looking stunts there, but I wasn't going to sit for 2 hours to watch the stunts.
There were so many people eager to do business with Dwayne Johnson because...
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Let me tell you a quick story about his work in Moana. He just sort of introduced himself as, what do you need me to do? I am here to work this movie. I will do whatever you guys need me to promote this movie. And it's just sort of like, from Disney's end, it was so refreshing because he was such an obvious active partner. When they finally officially announced Moana, what they wanted to do it was to have him live from Hawaii, but be on Good Morning America. And if you remember, Good Morning America runs from 7 in the morning to 9 in the morning East Coast time. And Dwayne was like, not a problem. So he's up at 2 a.m. out in Hawaii. And not only that, but he's found, because he's a local, it's like, oh, I know guys who can twirl the tiki torches, the fire.
Of course, because if you're Dwayne Johnson, of course you know people who can twirl fire sticks. Why wouldn't you, right?
The 7 or 8 o'clock hour on Good Morning America, he was live from Hawaii. He was
Steve, Larry. Good news. We're gonna be on TV.
Yeah, but he was there. He did the segment. He hyped the movie. It's so. Disney loves working with Dwayne. If they had their choice,
who wouldn't?
They'd shoehorn him into the Haunted Mansion movie. Maybe that's how they're going to bring pirates back. What happened to Captain Jack Sparrow? Well, he worked out a lot. He's much buffer than I recall.
He's gone bald and worked out. Don't ask any questions. Just go on with this. All right, Jim, one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. With these new show scenes that are coming into Jungle Cruise, how long of a refurbishment period do you think Disney's going to need to bring this in? Is this something where the ride's going to be down for a couple of months? Is it going to be down for 6 months? Is it going to be down for a year? What are you thinking here?
Well, realistically, remember the last time they did anything of size, and in this case, we're talking when the Indiana Jones adventure opened in 95, Jungle Cruise went down for the better part of a year, so they could, retool for that and, actually change the course of the river so there'd be more queue space. We'd probably be looking at the attraction going down in the fall of 2020 because, again, they're going to wait till see the movie hits. I mean, all this stuff's going to be prepped and they'll probably be talking to fabricators.
Oh, So that's an interesting strategy, because if they did it in the fall of 2019, if they're convinced the movie's a hit, they could do it in the fall of 2019 and have the ride ready for when the movie debuts.
They could, but I hate to say this, but the gentleman who was pushing for Disney adopting that strategy, that was John Lasseter, and John won't be
okay.
John
won't be making that argument in any boardroom anytime soon. Is what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, it was an idea, but okay. So we'll know within a couple of months of July of 2020 whether this is coming or not, because we'll know about the closures, right?
I'm told that the Imagineers who've seen the storyboards, who've read the script, are thrilled.
There's just so much potential.
There is.
Right?
But when I've talked with them, they're like, just understand that we're kind of taking the Pirates of the Caribbean approach. There will be a couple of things added. And then, depending on how people respond, and whether or not we see more increased injuries,
whether Dwayne Johnson wants to actually stand in the Jungle Cruise queue and scream as boats go by.
You laugh, but that was actually the end of George of the Jungle Cruise. That where you have Trader Sam's right now, as you made the turn to go back to the most dangerous part, return to civilization, they were actually going to have George of the Jungle, Ursula, and a gentleman in a gorilla costume literally standing along the shore interacting with guests as they went by. So live actors in the Jungle Cruise. So
I think Dwayne Johnson should do this. Dwayne, if you're listening, and I know you are, just something to think about. I'm super excited about this, Jim. I think this is a great idea. I'm excited to see the movie. I'm excited to see the transformation of the ride. I think it all has tons of potential. Like I said, very, very exciting. All right, Jim, thank you very much for all of that information. Like I said, very excited to see it happen. Folks, I'm sure you're excited too. Take that excitement and post a review of the show and tell us what you'd like to hear next on either iTunes or Stitcher. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.